Well, for me it wasn't really a choice. As a teenager, I loved reading, so I was the sort of kid who kind of plunged into books.
I've always really loved English, and I've done it all my life, and decided really early on that I wanted to do that. And then only when I studied Spanish when I was about 13, 14 did I think maybe it would be good to combine that with a language.
English was my favourite subject at school, and I always thought I would actually just do English, and then I did German A-level, and it was only just before I applied actually that I realised that I really loved doing languages as well.
I was interested in English literature, but one of the things I also really enjoyed was the feeling of kind of strangeness, the extra feeling of discovery really that happened when you were reading a book from a foreign language or a foreign culture.
I really wanted to go on a year abroad and study abroad, which obviously you do if you do a modern language at university, and so I thought the two would complement one another well. One of the really strong aspects of the Modern Languages and English Joint Schools course actually is that it's really flexible, more so than if you do just the one or the other, because you're kind of essentially taking half of each degree, so you actually have a lot of flexibility in what you choose.
Oxford has the most comprehensive course in the country. You can really study whatever you want.
Each English and Modern Languages student is in a sense assembling their own course. There are moments when they all come together. There's an Introduction to Literary Studies course that you all do in the first year. And then following on from that, each student can choose their particular interest.
So if you're doing a Renaissance English paper or a Shakespeare English paper, you can also do Golden Age in Spanish, and then you can look at the context and how they maybe merge or combine or blend in interesting ways.
I've done course 2 English, which is specifically just medieval, which is something that I think that, let's say 300 people in the year, only 15 do course 2.
They might choose to focus on different historical periods, they might choose to focus on very modern writing or medieval writing, or lots of different places that students can focus. They might choose to do work on film.
For modern languages you have a lot of contact time because there's a lot of language classes and grammar classes and translation classes. Whereas for a typical English student you might only have 1 tutorial in a week.
I go to around about 3 hours of language classes a week. Those are grammar and vocab and speaking classes. And there's probably around 2 translation classes, so each an hour long. And then maybe about 3 or 4 lectures for each subject.
I'd say most days I have language classes or something like that for Portuguese, but then around that I'm just in the bod reading all the time.
The Oxford course really teaches you grammar, and I had learnt grammar before, but perhaps not as deeply as you're taught in Oxford.
There are 9 languages that you can do with English, so you can do French and English, German and English, and so on. For some of those languages, like French and German, you need to know the language already, but there are some you can start learning from scratch while you're here.
I did a dissertation which I used to bridge the 2 sides of my degree. So I looked at a bilingual poet who was bilingual in English and Portuguese, and I compared the way he uses language and his poetic voice depending on the language he was working in.
Comparative literature is something that you can really only do from a position of, first of all, having expertise in the things you're going to compare.
There's a lot of different aspects to the degree and it's up to you to bring them together.
But for my year abroad in my 3rd year, I'm going to be starting off as an au pair in Spain for about a month with a family that doesn't speak English. So that should be really fun, just outside Madrid. Then I'm going to Chile to teach English and study in university because I think it'd be great to study Spanish in a Spanish-speaking country. And then I'm going to Spain as well, to Salamanca, to study for about 11 months.
There are lots of tremendously interesting and clever people here. There are experts in all sorts of different things. So really whatever you want to find out about, you can go to someone who really knows about it.
There's never an excuse to your tutor that you couldn't find the book because it is here somewhere, which we joke about, but actually it's a huge resource, it's amazing. I mean, anything you ever want to read on, no matter how obscure, there is a book on it somewhere in this city.
There's very good IT provision, databases, the language centre is very good. You know, all these kind of structural things that you want in a university are very good here as well.
I think what I found most stimulating is the tutorial system, because I get to spend an hour and a half one-on-one with a world expert on the text that I am reading and hopefully enjoying. And that for me is just an incredible opportunity to really think deeply and profoundly about what I'm studying.
Normally, I would have 1 or 2 tutorial essays per week. The essay I would write in 3 or 4 hours, but I would spend about 4 days reading.
If you pick the right things and you pick the right courses, as I think I've done, then every essay is an actually enjoyable experience rather than a chore.
Your tutors help you really discover what you're interested in and help you make the right choices for you.
I mean, later in my degree, I've not even been given an essay title. They've just said, go and write an essay. And I would make up the title and sort out my own reading list and go and read everything, which sounds quite unstructured, but actually there's a great freedom there as well to pursue what you want to do.
A student will have written an essay, brought it to the tutorial. I'll pick out some of the ideas that seem to me interesting, and we'll talk about how to take them further. We'll talk about different bits of evidence that can be brought into relation with them. We'll talk about how to develop the ideas.
It's very intense and there's nowhere to hide, but if you have a good tute when you're with some people and the ideas are kind of really flowing, it can be really engaging and really challenging in a good way and really enjoyable. I came from a school where no one really ever went to Oxbridge, and I had come on a cool scholarship trial day thing, and I remember finding the place very daunting, and I walked around thinking, oh my god, there's no way I'll ever get in here.
I thought, oh my goodness, everyone at Oxford is going to be so well read. I haven't read that much. Maybe I've got to read everything, every novel ever written in English and Spanish. So I went away and read so many different things, and not very well and not very quickly. I skim read quite a lot, and I think had I had the experience again and were I to go through it again, I probably would read fewer things but more deeply and to really think about it.
It's very obvious if you love your subject and if you don't love your subject, and the tutors see straight through that. And I think ultimately the tutors just want to know that they can teach you for 4 years and that you will be engaging and you'll be interesting and will love the subject and that they will be able to have a conversation with you.
We're really interested in seeing you at your best, which is to say we're not at all interested in kind of being intimidating or throwing trick questions at you, that kind of thing.
I was asked to choose one picture to talk about for around 2 minutes, and then I was asked questions on it and had to speak completely in Spanish. So that was quite daunting.
And I actually found the interviews really enjoyable. They were stressful, but it was actually my first experience of really engaging in an intellectual debate with somebody and talking to them as an equal, which was kind of a new experience for me.
We discussed in detail my personal statement, some literature that I'd read that I might want to study in more detail in Oxford. So it's very calm actually. It wasn't like a horror story like you might hear in the news.
If you really love your subject, I mean, you probably won't know that much about it at an interview, and that will probably also come through, but they don't mind that. Thinking back, I said some really, really cringy things at interview, but I think they also saw that I really, really wanted to come and that I would work hard and that I was trying and that I was interested in what they were saying and I was willing to learn from them.
You need to have a sort of imaginative and exploratory mind, and what goes along with that really is a readiness to ask questions, and then in discussion, a readiness to explore questions.
It was amazing. Amazing kind of confirmation as well, because I'd never really thought I would be able to do it, and it gave me a lot of confidence. Yeah.
I haven't decided wholeheartedly yet, but I think that I'd like to be either a teacher or an academic.
I'm going to do a master's at Oxford next year, and then I'm kind of going down more of the languages route. I'm more interested in languages, I think, so I'm looking at working either in the media or maybe in development and international relations. Languages are really useful wherever you go, and actually I hadn't really appreciated that properly until quite recently when I realised applying for things, I've been up against straight English students and I have an edge which I didn't know I had because I speak languages fluently.
if you're the kind of person who sits in a class in A-level or doing the IB or whatever it might be, and wants to do more with the literature that they're reading, rather than just doing the essay that they're supposed to do for that week, then actually really wants to engage closely with what they're doing, and maybe feels a bit held back by the system, then Oxford's definitely the place that you should come, because it's fun, but also very challenging, but ultimately entirely rewarding. And I found it a great experience here, so far at least.